Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll need if I could get everyone's attention, please. We want to get going, and we want to start hearing from the minister. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please first of all join me in welcoming our webcast viewers. My name is Andrew Graham. I'm president of the Canadian Club of Toronto, and it's my pleasure to be your host for today. Viewers, thank you for joining us. Our club really focuses on bringing top decision makers and thought leaders to the podium to share their thoughts and what they're working on with all of you. I know a few years ago, many of us were worried about what the internet and technology would mean for clubs like this. And I think the answer, and you're all voting with your feet, is that there is more demand and more desire than ever to get together with people at lunchtime, share a bite, hear a very thoughtful speaker, and exchange words, sometimes even disagree with people. If any of you were sitting at lunch with anyone disagreeable, we can take those comments later on. You can engage with us, even though our format hasn't changed, lunch and a thoughtful speaker, you can engage with us with technology. We invite you to tweet as the event unfolds. There are chargers, I think, on certain tables if you need to charge your phone. So we certainly encourage that sort of interaction. Events like today are not possible without sponsors, and we have some great sponsors today. First of all, Borden Ladner Gervais, represented by Sean Weir, BMO, represented by Grant Williams, Bruce Power, represented by Lynn Mahoney, and the Ontario Real Estate Association, represented by David Reed. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. And to do that, I'll tell a very short personal story. My wife is from North Bay, and when I was getting to know her and getting to know her parents, you of course want to create a good impression with your future in-laws. I remember visiting her father, and her father said, "Boy, we've got such a terrific mayor here. I just love our mayor here." So of course I nodded in approval and then went and did some research and learned more about then Mayor, now Minister Fedeli's impressive background. And I can tell you, Minister, I'm certainly not going to say anything to disagree or otherwise anger my in-laws today. The government has already declared that the report from the Independent Financial Commission of Inquiry and with the changes announced yesterday, we've already seen that big changes have begun in Ontario. Minister Fedeli, we know, is laser focused on addressing the province's debt and managing its finances. I can tell you in the reception we had before, he was signing a book, and someone even suggested that maybe we could take the pens from the signing and donate that, but the minister thought that might be a step too far. He's a successful businessman and former North Bay mayor and has an impressive background in entrepreneurship and municipal politics. 15 years ago, he received 75% of the mayoral vote and was re-elected in 2006 with an impressive landslide. As mayor, he worked to transform North Bay. Through his efforts, the city's credit rating soared and debt interest payments dropped. Minister Fedeli's municipal leadership has been recognized internationally. He participated in the Government Leaders Forum hosted by Bill Gates, and he met with U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. He was acknowledged for his key role in the campaign to reverse the Buy American provision that the U.S. government had introduced. At the provincial level, the North Bay native was elected to Queen's Park in 2011, representing the riding of Nipissing. 3 years later, he was re-elected and served as energy and finance critic in the official opposition's shadow cabinet. This past June, he was re-elected for a third time. Besides his important financial portfolio, he serves as the chair of cabinet. Minister Fedeli, I'm pleased to pass the Canadian Club of Toronto's podium over to you. Thank you.
Andrew, you're obviously a great judge of character if you've picked a North Bay woman to share your life with. I did the same thing, and I must say it was the smartest thing I ever did in my life. Thank you again, Andrew, for that kind and generous introduction, and thank you, Colleen. Thank you very much for your efforts for today, and to the Canadian Club board members here today, and all of the staff for putting together today's event. Allow me for a moment to recognize a few people here. My fellow Queen's Park colleagues who are in the audience today and who have come out to support our speech. I want to begin with my friend, Minister Peter Bethlenfalvy. He was introduced earlier. Peter is doing a terrific job as President of the Treasury Board, leading the charge in modernizing and transforming government operations. We're so grateful, Peter. Doug Downey is also here, MPP Doug Downey. He is the MPP for Barrie Springwater Oro-Medonte. His business cards are that long. And Doug is the parliamentary assistant to the Ministry of Finance. And we're truly lucky to have someone as thoughtful and as astute as Doug is here on our team. There are many, many others who I'm going to take a moment to acknowledge who came here. I want to start with our friend Dean French. He is Chief of Staff to Premier Doug Ford. Dean, he's been a great leader. He's been a great leader, a great friend to Premier Ford, and a truly respected advisor. Minister Bill Walker, Minister of Government and Consumer Services, is here. Billy, you're out as your first ministerial role. We have Randy Pettipies, who's the Parliamentary Assistant for Agriculture. Lindsay Park, who is here as the Parliamentary Assistant for the Ministry of the Attorney General. Stan Cho is the Parliamentary Assistant for Treasury Board, who works with Peter. Prabmeet Sarkaria is here. He is the Parliamentary Assistant for Community Safety and Correctional Services. Oh, there's going to be nobody left at the House here. Stan Cho, did I say Stan? Stan Cho. Rudy Cazzetto is here. Oh, Rudy Cazzetto is here. I did say Stan? All right. You got a third time, Stan. But I hope I'm not leaving anybody out. I also want to acknowledge the Deputy Minister. Greg Orenchek is here, the Deputy Minister of Finance, who, you know, we just work so well together and have such a great relationship. He and his tremendous team, including Gadi Mayman, who is here, who is the CEO of the Ontario Financing Authority. Gadi, where are you? Hiding? There you are. And I see so many others. I'm going to get in trouble now. I started to name so many other people. There will be one more that I am going to name a bit later in the speech. It was a privilege to deliver the 2018 Ontario Economic Outlook and Fiscal Review yesterday in the Ontario Legislature, our government's very first economic plan for the people. And I tell you, we stood so proudly with Premier Ford yesterday delivering the plan for the people of Ontario. And this is it right here, the plan for the people. It's a plan that sets us down a much different path, one that will restore our fiscal health, preserve critical services, and provide much-needed tax relief to hardworking individuals, families, and businesses. Today, we want to do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the contents. But first, let's just going to take a step back and understand how we got where we are. The outcome of the June 7th election in Ontario was not only decisive for Premier Ford, it was a flashpoint. It was the materialization of a broader shift in public opinion, a shift that has had a positive implication in our economy, our business climate, and most importantly, in the government itself. The Ontario voters firmly believed that something was fundamentally broken, something integral to the foundation of our democratic institution. In a word, trust. The previous Liberal government lost the trust of the people. They forgot who they were working for. For 15 years, it's a little harsh coming up, for 15 years, they and a select group of friends ruled with an elitist mantra that said, government knows best and government has all the answers. Well, to make matters worse, the Liberal government believed that deficits and debt are hypothetical, they're fictional, magical creatures. I call them unicorns. Well, they believe that you can keep spending and wasting other people's money because there are no consequences to debt, because there'll always be somebody out there with even more money. Well, In their world, politicians and friends prospered at Queen's Park while the province accumulated massive debt. Hundreds of thousands of jobs, 320,000, left the province, and families struggled to make ends meet. That is why restoring trust, transparency, and accountability in government is so very, very critical. It underpins everything we do. Our government is guided by a very different set of beliefs than the previous administration. The belief that hard work should be rewarded, that tax dollars should be respected, and the role of government is to help and protect the most vulnerable in our society. Government must work for the people and not the other way around. For the men and women who are the backbone of our communities and our economy, we must never, ever forget them. The Ontario Economic Outlook and Fiscal Review underscores our desire to rebuild the people's trust, starting with the finances of the province. We took a page from Ontario households to manage our books, just the same way you manage yours at home. Living within our means, managing our debts, and making every dollar count. We started from the premise that government must respect Ontario taxpayers and that they deserve to know how their tax dollars are being spent. A few weeks ago, we released the report of the Independent Financial Commission of Enquiry and the line-by-line review of government expenditures, and I want to acknowledge the presence in the audience of former Premier of British Columbia, Chair of the Independent Financial Commission of Enquiry, Mr. Gordon Campbell. There you are, sir. Your independent inquiry, in addition to the line-by-line review, provided a clear picture of the state of Ontario's finances. And I must say, Premier, it was sobering news. The Commission concluded that our government inherited a massive $15 billion deficit and over $1/3 of $1 trillion in debt from the previous Liberal government. Just take a minute to think about that. These are massive numbers with unbelievably serious implications. We use the word trillion today. Such a deficit leaves Ontario extremely vulnerable to the next economic downturn and severely restricts our ability to invest in the programs and services that we cherish. Consider this: interest payments on our debt have become the 4th largest line item in our budget after health care, education, and social services. This year, we will pay $12.5 billion in interest. Now think about it. We have a $14.5 billion deficit today. We're paying $12.5 billion in interest. We are borrowing every penny just to pay interest. We are using our Visa card to pay our MasterCard. We're paying $1.4 million an hour in interest, $900 for every man, woman, and child. Those numbers are staggering. It brings a hush to the room. But here's another stark figure from Minister Bethlenfalvy's line-by-line review. Had the previous Liberal government held expenditure growth in line with population growth, Ontario would have spent $331 billion less. That's nearly enough to pay down Ontario's entire debt. So like many Ontario households, we believe the first thing you do when you find yourself in this kind of a hole is to stop digging. Our government took immediate steps to mitigate the Liberal deficit, and we've made significant progress. We froze discretionary spending, meals, travel expenses, subscriptions, hiring, executive compensation, and such in the public service. We found efficiencies in government expenditures, whether it was the small things we kid about, like eliminating our telephones and telephone landlines in favor of cell phones. We don't really kid about it. They were serious savings. But we also had large-scale reforms, including the proposed adjustments for OHIP Plus, on helping, which now focuses on helping those children and youth under 25 who do not have private insurance coverage. I want to just talk about this for a second because people ask, there you go. People ask us, tell us what you mean by efficiencies. This OHIP Plus is a perfect example of an efficiency. The previous government announced that pharmacare for everybody under 25 would be free, so they have to borrow $700 million a year to do that. Our government looked at it and said, well, hang on a second. Many families already have benefits plans and their children are covered, so let's let that kick in first, and for those that don't, we'll pay the difference. So at the end of the day, in this efficiency, everybody under 25 still is covered, nobody lost a job, and the government saved almost $300 million. That's what Premier Ford means by an efficiency. We're very proud to stand here and tell you that our approach is working. We've already achieved significant savings. Under the leadership of Minister Bethlyn Falvey, we have found 2% across the board, or $3.2 billion in savings in the short time we've been there. That's without a single job cut, without a tax hike, or without a reduction in frontline services. $3.2 billion in savings already. And at the same time, we acted immediately to deliver $2.7 billion in tax relief to Ontario families, individuals, and businesses. Yeah, that's applause-worthy. So you can do your math. We saved $3.2 billion. We brought $2.7 billion in relief to families. That leaves $500 million in just a matter of weeks since former Premier's review, and which reduces our deficit from $15 billion to $14.5 billion for 2018 and 19. So as we work towards Budget 2019, and I'm looking at some of the team here, we start Monday morning, by the way. I'm looking at you. Our roadmap will include these critical components. First, a path to balance that is reasonable, modest, and pragmatic. I like to call it the Goldilocks story. It can't be done too quickly, because nobody is going to respect or believe that. It can't take too long, because, quite frankly, anybody can do that. It's got to be just right. And so that's why, with Premier Ford, it will be a reasonable and pragmatic road to balance. Secondly, a meaningful debt reduction strategy needs to be implemented so we do not pass down this terrible burden to future generations. And finally, stronger fiscal transparency and accountability measures enshrined in our laws so that taxpayers are never again on the hook for reckless fiscal policies and fiscal mismanagement. At the same time, we will ensure that every agency is delivering services effectively and providing value for taxpayers' money, starting with a comprehensive review of all government agencies. There you go. Earlier in the speech, it was mentioned that the role of government should be to help those who need it most in our society. So for starters, I think it's a good thing to stop taxing them. And that is why you heard yesterday that we are proposing the new Low-Income Individual and Family Tax Cut, or LIFT for short. It is one of the single most generous Ontario tax cut for low-income workers in generations. With the proposed tax credit, the vast majority of Ontario workers earning less than $30,000 a year will pay no provincial income tax. Nada. Zilch. Zero. This will provide, if passed, will provide low-income and minimum wage workers with up to $850 in tax relief and couples up to $1,700. The LIFT credit would, if passed, benefit 1.1 million people across the province. LIFT leaves, yeah, that is a good one, 1.1 million people. LIFT leaves more money in the pockets of those who need it most, while giving business time to adjust to the $14 an hour minimum wage. Now, many of us take shelter for granted. We go home at the end of the day to the comfort of our homes, our apartments, our condos. For a growing number of people, the prospect of affordable accommodation is getting beyond their reach. Individuals and families are facing an affordability challenge, in part because housing supply has not kept pace with demand. In response, our government has committed to develop and implement a housing supply action plan to address barriers that prevent the development of ownership and rental housing. We are also reintroducing a rent control exemption that will apply to new rental units in order to create market-based incentives to increase housing supply across the province. To be clear, rent control will remain in place for existing tenants, but we are bringing forward a rent control exemption. Now you can. Along with more affordable housing, we need more affordable and reliable public transit. Ontario's economy loses billions each year in lost productivity due to gridlock. We can and we must do better. In order to develop a regional transit system that is more integrated and connected, we are proposing to modernize Metrolinx, ensuring the agency's primary focus is on service delivery. And at the same time, we propose to upload the responsibility for the TTT subway infrastructure from the City of Toronto to the Government of Ontario. These proposed changes would enable the province to further fund and deliver additional transit projects sooner. Now, our government is committed to improving service delivery across government and be more responsive to the changing needs and our, I'm going to say it, aging demographics. That's why we are taking immediate steps to end hallway health care. With an aging population, we need to focus our precious resources on supporting our seniors. We announced that we are building 6,000 new long-term care beds in communities all across Ontario. And we have another 9,000 new beds already in the pipeline, which we will be delivering to those communities that need it the most. And in advance of the flu season, we're currently investing $90 million to create 1,100 beds in communities across Ontario. And in addition, we are matching the federal commitment by making a $1.9 billion investment in mental health and addiction services over the next decade. Yeah, that is. We will continue to transform our healthcare system to drive efficiencies like OHIP Plus that we talked about and improve the outcome for the patients. Now, this is a lighter part of it. Playing hockey is not only good exercise, it allows people of all abilities to be part of a team. That's why we are proud to say that for the first time in Ontario's history, we are proposing to celebrate Special Hockey Day on March 27, 2019, to support athletes with developmental disabilities. This coincides with the 25th Annual Special Hockey International Tournament to be held right here in Toronto. That's a beautiful, beautiful function. Our government is also standing behind the Ontario Hockey League in recognition of their important contributions to local communities across the province. To ensure OHL teams have a level playing field, our government will exclude players from the Employment Standards Act while guaranteeing they receive scholarships for post-secondary education. We are committed to protecting amateur hockey in Ontario and ensuring the long-term sustainability of the league and its teams, including the North Bay Battalion in my home riding. Now, I see that Dean French and Premier Ford made it to Peterborough and back as you got to commiserate with the OHL last night and tell them about this new change. I had a great conversation this morning on the telephone with Scott Abbott, the inventor of Trivial Pursuit, as you all know, but to us at home, he's the guy in the crowd who never misses a home game of the North Bay Battalion, the team that he owns. And so we had a great chat, and I've been invited to drop the puck on the 25th, Sunday the 25th at 2 o'clock against Guelph, and all I'm going to say is go Troops. Our government is not only taking steps to make life more affordable, we are making life more convenient as well. Our government will allow the LCBOs, the beer stores, and licensed grocery stores to sell alcohol from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week. Clearly, we... We give $500 million to low-income families, but we get an applause for the LCBO hours. I love it. It's so true. I knew that would. I knew that would. Clearly, we're putting you, the consumers, first. But we're also inviting consumers and businesses to comment on on the province's alcohol policies. We want to explore the safe, responsible expansion of beer and wine to corner stores, big box stores, and even more grocery stores. And we'll have more to say on that consultation in the coming weeks. But, you know, most people, if you live outside of Toronto, as I do, there are 218 of these agency stores where I can go into Tariq's General Store and I can buy beer, wine, and spirits at one of these 218 stores. They're already in Ontario. I can go to Young's gas station in Nipissing Township. I can go to the Lucky 13 on my street on Highway 94 in Corbeil, as you well know, and buy beer, wine, and spirits every day of the week. It's really fascinating that we can do that in rural Ontario. And so obviously we're looking for consultations to see about expanding this right across Ontario. Now, a strong balance sheet and respect for consumers and families must be complemented by a strong economy. Under the leadership of our Minister of Labour, we have introduced the Making Ontario Open for Business Act that, if passed, will repeal the job-killing parts of Bill 148. The parts that are actually a disincentive for businesses to hire new workers, the parts that actually encouraged investors to flee Ontario. And at the same time, we're maintaining the standards that protect vulnerable workers. We are also fixing the skilled trades mess that was left. It left businesses unable to find skilled workers and young people unable to find jobs in the skilled trades. And for that reason, we are shutting down the College of Trades. Our government believes that governments don't create jobs. Our entrepreneurs and our innovators create jobs. We need to create the conditions to make it more attractive to start a business, grow a business, or invest in Ontario. And that's why our government is taking steps to cancel $308 million in tax hikes that were planned by the previous government to come into effect in January. These included tax increases for individuals, families, and businesses. So to be specific, the federal government's phase-out of the Ontario small business tax rate, and of course I'm talking about passive income, our government has made a conscious decision not to parallel the Trudeau government on those tax increases and impose that tax increase. We will not be paralleling that. This measure alone, if passed, would save 7,900 businesses up to $40,000 a year. That's money they can use to reinvest in their business, expand their business, and hire more employees. And our government is also increasing the payroll exemption for employer health tax, providing about $40 million in additional tax relief for businesses. and we are proud to say that we will continue to provide Ontario film and television tax credits to support this vibrant industry as it continues to expand right across the province. Now, in light of the recent tax reforms in the United States, we are working to improve the competitiveness of our business tax systems. This will allow us to become more competitive, strengthen our economy, and make Ontario open for business. To that end, we have written to the Federal Finance Minister, Bill Morneau, to allow immediate expensing of depreciable assets similar to the measures taken in the United States. We firmly believe it is imperative that the federal fall economic statement next week adopt this critical policy, as it will help businesses make large investments like machine upgrades and expansions in equipment. Improving Ontario's competitiveness also means removing barriers to job creation and business growth like red tape. You know, it's outrageous that in Ontario we're currently burdened with 331 statutes and more than 380,000 regulations. Premier, that's twice as many as the province of British Columbia has, and it seems like a pretty nice place to live in as well. So to that end, we are currently heading an effort to cut red tape across the entire government, and our Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade is well on the way, and we are announcing that we will further reduce red tape for businesses by 25% by the year 2022. And we're working And we're even working with the Ontario Securities Commission to see how they can reduce red tape in the interest of encouraging strong, fair, and efficient capital markets in the province of Ontario. Now, when it comes to driving economic growth, we cannot forget rural Ontario and my beloved Northern Ontario. Our government is working with private gas distributors to expand natural gas to more rural communities, farms, and greenhouses in order to provide affordable, reliable power. We're also making strategic investments in broadband networks to improve network connectivity right across the North and rural Ontario. And finally, we will develop the Ring of Fire. No more platitudes, no more delays. Our government will work directly with the First Nation partners in order to realize the long-awaited benefits. We will also be moving forward with our resource revenue sharing agreements to create a win-win situation for northern towns, Indigenous communities, and mining, forestry, and aggregate companies. Now, to expand our economy, we must find a way to get our natural resources to market more efficiently. And that is why our government has decided we will not stand in the way of any project that would transport oil from Western Canada to Ontario or to Canada's East Coast. Yep. In order to further national interest, we will be unilaterally relinquishing our veto over new pipeline construction within our borders. It's time we work together as part of a great nation and get the pipelines built. But by this point, you've likely concluded that Premier Ford's government is opposed to tax increases, any tax increases. You know, when it came time from the former government to raise the vehicle registration taxes in September, Premier Ford said, no, Vic, we're not doing that. When it came time to raise fishing licenses this month, Premier Ford said, no new taxes. So you've obviously got the message that we don't want new taxes. We believe people need to keep more money in their pockets. Well, however, we have a federal Liberal government in Ottawa that is determined to impose a carbon tax on the people of Ontario no matter what. It doesn't matter how many concerns Prime Minister Trudeau hears, he is determined to make the people of Ontario pay. Our government is proud to join a growing coalition of Canadian provinces opposed to the federal carbon tax framework, one that includes Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and New Brunswick, and Premier Ford has made it crystal clear that he intends to fight the carbon tax with every tool in his toolbox, and that includes legal challenges both in Saskatchewan and right here in Ontario. To round that up, our government is actively exploring a full suite of transparency measures that will ensure every single person in Ontario is informed of how much money they are paying in federal carbon tax every time they pay a home heating bill, every time they fill up their car. They will know just how much. It is our intention to let everyone in Ontario know just how much money the federal government is taking out of their pockets. So in conclusion, that's your favorite word so far. In conclusion, I'd like to close with a few final thoughts on the financial state of the province. The deficit and debt we inherited from the previous government is real and it is significant. There are no quick fixes, and the path to balance will be difficult. It will require fiscal discipline, but it will also require innovation and creativity. I think Minister Bethlenfalvy summed it up quite nicely last week in his speech, where he said, quote, "It's not simply a matter of finding one-time savings here or there, but engineering a broader transformation of how government operates and delivers services. We cannot continue with the same old approach in government. We have to spend smarter, work smarter, and rethink the way we do absolutely everything. And while the task will seem daunting at times, we are confident that we have the leadership under Premier Ford and the team to turn this around. The status quo is unsustainable, and I know we all understand that. So we gladly tighten our own belts now, as it will provide this generation and the future ones with the secure, prosperous future they deserve. We have made tremendous progress in the few short weeks that we've been there, but our journey has just begun. Our government will never forget who we are working for. It is and always will be for the people. Thank you.
Minister, thank you so much for that very powerful speech. I think it's very clear how passionate and thoughtful you are about all of the issues that you're tackling. And I think we can all say, and I think everyone in Ontario can say, regardless of their political persuasion, that government matters a lot and it's very important, and we wish you well in what you are doing on behalf of the province. So thank you very much for speaking with us today. Really, I think a very thoughtful and very memorable speech. Thank you. I will say, for anyone who's maybe not Canadian in the room, it's absolutely normal for a Minister of Finance to include a new hockey tournament amongst the list of important matters in their fiscal update. That's just par for the course. Just a couple of last remarks before we conclude. First of all, we have a few upcoming events that may be of interest. First of all, on Tuesday, November 20th, we have the President and CEO of the Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board, Mark Machin, who will be at our podium. And on Friday, November 23rd, we have the Federal Minister of Finance, the Honourable Bill Morneau, who will deliver remarks. Presumably won't say exactly the same thing. There will be some differences in approach. So please plan to attend that as well. Finally, I'd like to thank BLG, BMO, Bruce Power, and the Ontario Real Estate Association once again for supporting today's event. And the club is immensely thankful to MediaEvents.ca, Canada's online event space, and VVC for live streaming today's event. Thank you all for being with us today. Enjoy your afternoon. See you soon.